we're getting ready to hear Dr. Ugo Bardi, physical chemist in Florence, Italy, author, frequent author on what used to be called the Cassandra's Legacy blog. Now he's shifted his work over to a blog called the Seneca Effect, which is to say, building things up is slow, but the way to ruin is rapid. So said Seneca. And Dr. Bardi, hold on. Dr. Bardi?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Nice to be with you from Italy, people. And today I will take 20 minutes of your time to tell you something about collapse, which is a very popular subject, I think. Okay, now you're starting to record me, so whatever I said will never be known by the universe, but don't worry, I keep going. And I was saying that according to historians, civilizations collapse because many factors come together, and together they manage somehow to bring down the whole system, which is not so satisfactory. As in our case, we have energy problems, environmental problems, we have climate problems, we have political problems, we have pollution problems. Oof, you can enjoy that, the list. But why are all these problems coming together? And there is a reason, which I think that Seneca himself had a hint already at his time, because collapse, be careful, collapse is not a bug, it is a feature, as they say in computer systems. It is part of the way the system is built, because societies are made in a way to collapse. And there is a theory that tells you why societies, associations, political parties, armies, governments, cities, people, families, all tend to collapse. And you have to understand this. And I can show you now, to you people, for the first time in the world, a model of collapse. Let me show it to you. Can you see this? Patricia, can you see it? You can. You see the models. When a scientist tells you about models, typically he or she thinks in terms of mathematical models, but this is not necessary. You can make a model like this one, which is made using ice cream sticks. You may have seen this. This is called also a stick bomb. It explodes. Yes, it explodes. I can show you. And let me show you how this simple system, which is kept together by the energy accumulated inside the sticks, they act as springs. They acquire this energy, they keep it, and they can release it. But if you do not perturb the system stays like this forever. This is not like the real system, but it gives you some idea. Now, let me show you. I look like I am in jail, but not yet. I'm not in jail. Let me show you how this system can collapse. How do you make this system collapse? You just remove one of the nodes of the system, like I'm doing. See? Collapse. So what happened is a model of what we call in science, we call complex system. I have another one. I learned how to make these things. And you see what happens. The system is stable as long as every node, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 nodes, all connected together. The system stays together, does not collapse as long as all the nodes are there. And this is a model, very simple model, and that I think incidentally, it is the way science should work. Not making complicated model. Science should make mind-size models that people like me, like you, like we can understand, because we scientists have been doing very complex models and things that no, this, I think we have to have some practical, real information. Why do things collapse? And if we understand how things collapse, then we can maybe sometimes, if you're lucky, if we do well, avoid collapse or mitigate it. So why does this thing collapse? Because all nodes are connected. And if you lose one node, then the whole system goes down. And typically in civilization, the node that you lose is control, government. Civilization collapse because you lose the capability of the government to manage society. This is what happened to the Romans long ago. Why did it happen? Because they ran out of gold. Not that they didn't really run out. They used gold to pay the soldiers. Soldiers will not fight, not even today. Soldiers, if you want soldiers to fight, you have to pay them. And the Romans were very good. As long as they had a lot of gold, they had a lot of soldiers, they could conquer everybody around. Run out of gold, no more army. Then you have no more army. The barbarians come in, and then you cannot buy the grain produced in other regions, and lots of problems. Eventually, the whole system went down fast, relatively. The Roman Empire collapsed in about 300 years. Takes some time, of course. This is much quicker. And that this is typical. If you lose control, one node of this thing is the control system. In our case, like for the Romans, control is financial. Our financial system controls the allocation of resources. If you don't have this control, the resources are not allocated, and this is very bad. Because if you don't have the capability to control the transfer of resources, for instance, food, from where food is produced to where food is consumed, then it's a disaster. Because it's bad. I don't have to explain you why, but you understand. So the risk we have is to lose the financial system. You know how this financial system is completely movable, moves around, but eventually the control is not so much virtual. It is real. You need energy. You need energy to control the system. Control is the most expensive feature of the whole system. And if you lose control, you lose everything. Quick, very quick. So how can you avoid that? What is the risk? The risk is that we run out of resources, run out of energy, crude oil, for instance, then we lose control because we don't have enough energy to keep the control working. Could happen in different ways. We have some huge problem with climate change, a giant tsunami wipes out Washington, D.C., which some people would not say it's so bad, but let me not harp on that. But also that would cause the disappearance of the government. If there is no government, there is no financial system, there is no control of the system. Bad. All other things, pollution or whatever, a war, a nuclear war, whatever. But the node that destroys everything is the control node. So how can you avoid it? A few things for you to ponder. First thing, if you lose control, is because you don't have enough energy to control. So you have to provide energy to the system. The system needs energy to function. In this simple model, the energy is elastic energy stored into the sticks. You lose this and the system, bang, there's no more a system. It becomes many sticks lost in the nothing. Second thing, you could separate the system. This is what the Romans did back in the 3rd century of our era. They divided the empire in two, Eastern and Western. And that helped a lot because managing one part of the empire was easier. And then the collapse of the Western Empire, which happened much before the Eastern, it did not cause the collapse of the Eastern part, like in our case, modern case, the collapse of the Soviet Union did not generate the collapse of the Western system, our system. So if you keep the system separate, then it helps a lot. And also you can make the system smaller. This is another, you see, there's a lot of tricks that you can play with ice cream sticks. So you can do that, smaller system. So it's what's happening. It is happening because the globalization is going down. Nation states are coming back. Maybe in the future, we will go to regional states, not anymore the large states we have today. We could go even back to city states. And in that case, since the system is smaller, the collapse of a part of the system will not cause the collapse of the whole thing. And so you see a few things. We have to think in terms of providing energy to the system. And this energy can only be renewable energy because at present we have no other possibility. We have to stop burning fossil fuels, but nuclear, I don't think is a good idea. And so we need renewable energy, not expecting the system to thrive, to keep going the same way. The system will have to adapt to a supply of energy, which will be very different. And we have to separate the system in chunks that can adapt without causing the collapse of the whole system. We have to lower the temperature of the system, making it easier to manage so that we need less energy to manage it. And then we may be able to avoid global collapse, but with attention, because even this system here, as you can see, can collapse. And so don't worry. Everything is moving on according to plan. All those things that you heard, that we need to go local management, local government, are all good things that we will see more and more in the future. And everything, as Seneca already said, back in the 1st century of our era, he was right. So we're following the advice of philosophy and take it easy. Collapse will come, but if we know how to manage it, may not be so bad. And thank you very much for your attention. And if you people want to ask questions, if you like, you please write them. Have Patricia write them to the chat section so that I can read them.
Yes.
Okay.
Things up. Yes, Bushrod, question.
I didn't hear a solution.
There was an implied solution, but can you summarize the solution, a quote solution?
Produce energy, go local, don't expect too much, live happy.
Got that, everybody? So can you, Dr. Bardi, can you comment on the tendency to want to change without changing?
That's great. Antonio will comment about that, about hydrogen, right? Antonio, hydrogen is a classic example.
Yes,
you want to change without changing. You know that you're citing an Italian writer called Leopardi. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote a book, said the art of changing without changing everything, without changing anything. This is what we're trying to do. And it is typical. It is typical of this. As long as you have the system in place, then nothing changes. In a certain way, if you want to process, you must collapse, because otherwise nothing changes. People will try to replace fossil fuels with blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, pink hydrogen, yellow hydrogen, or rainbow hydrogen, or whatever. You need a little collapse to change things. And but it is the beauty of life when things change. And Seneca himself, long ago, he said, I'm making the philosopher here, I'm not a philosopher, but I read a lot about Seneca. And he said, there is no success that doesn't have its origin in a previous collapse. Okay, now you know something that Seneca said, a quote by Seneca. You know, I think, let me tell you quickly, Seneca was the first blogger. He wrote in a way that today is typical. It didn't have boldface, but you can read Seneca and you identify sentences which are there as if they were boldface. Yeah, there you go, Seneca.
I have one more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How feasible is it, considering the energy cost of resources, to replace our transportation, retaining our individual freedom to drive cars with electric cars?
Everything is possible. We need transportation, because if we don't have transportation, we die, very simple. As I was saying, you need to bring the food from where the food is produced to where the food is eaten. You need a transportation system to do that. And then the big problem is that right now, trucks run on diesel fuel. And Antonio will be able, I think, to tell you something about the situation with diesel fuel. So what do? Within some limits, we can eat locally. Within some limits, because if something goes wrong locally, you need to import food. So you need to have some kind of transportation. At the present stage, we need to electrify this transportation because there is no other way. I am not optimistic about the capability that we'll have to replace all the cars we have, because we really have too many, especially in America, as you know, too many cars. But we need to electrify road transport. This cannot be avoided. Then we depending on the resources we have, maybe we can still have some private transportation, maybe not so much as we have had so far. Our generation, mine, Antonio's generation, we used to have cars. Maybe we can have an electric. I have an electric car, if you want to know. And so far, I can afford it. I think I need a car because I cannot avoid to have one right now. But I think we will adapt it. Transportation is not the main problem. The energy. If you have energy, you can electrify transportation and keep going. If you don't, you die. That's simple.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bardi. Now,
Patricia, could you clap your hands for me?
Yeah.
And thank you very much. Okay, was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it.
I've been reading Dr. Bardi's work for many years,